Hi, this is Ben Freeman, and this is my exam alternate assignment. So for my submission, I wanted to talk about adversity. So this presentation will mainly focus on the uses of adversity, and then also explore whether or not adversity is really necessary, or the extent to which it is. So first, we have the uses of adversity. So the first three here are mentioned in Haidt's book, The Happiness Hypothesis. So one is a reconsideration of one's self concept. So after one experiences an adverse situation, they may begin to realize that they had some strengths that they didn't know they originally had. Before adversity strikes, one might think they're not well equipped to deal with something. But then after they experience it, they come out realizing that hey, they were strong enough, they were able to deal with it. And so that's actually in that realization, one positive effect is they start to reevaluate their own self, and so their self concept may improve. A second use that Haidt mentions is this notion that adversity can act as a filter for one's relationships. Um, so when one experiences some adversity or some traumatic experience, the people around them, some of them may feel uncomfortable and they won't know what to do exactly, so they might sort of drift away from that person who's in need, while others may, rush to that person's aid. So in that way, adversity acts as the agent or the distinguishing agent for the person in question to sort of determine who are his or her, really deeper, real friends versus who are just the fair weather friends. But along with that, adversity also it helps the person who experiences adversity to revalue their relationships and to gain a new appreciation of their relationships. Because after experiencing adversity, one might start to realize, okay, what are the things that actually matter? My these really good relationships I have, this is the thing that really matters. So the relationships in that case might actually improve, or they'll become fortified and strengthened. And then the last benefit that Haidt mentions is this idea of priorities and philosophies, and how, in the wake of adversity, one may again sort of reevaluate their current priorities and philosophies, um, which makes sense, I think, because if you go through a very adverse experience, you start to really come down to it and say, what really matters to me. Um, so people sometimes cite this adversity can help one get off the hedonic treadmill because in allowing someone to sort of take a step back, adversity may help them to see, the frivolity of the hedonic treadmill and maybe even the futility of it, and they may leave it in favor for more meaningful things. And then the fourth point here is the idea of resiliency. So this is what we discussed at length in class, um, and it goes hand in hand with the idea of humans being anti-fragile. That is, that we need stressors and challenges in order to learn. We require them in order to grow. And this is exactly in contradiction to the myths of fragility that are often, endorsed in current society. And myths of fragility contribute to the advent, or not the advent, but the sort of proliferation of overprotection, where parents or schools or just institutions like that will try to suppress resilience, so they'll try to avoid adversity, and they'll try to sort of insulate children or people, which isn't actually in their best interest because maybe we need um, adversity to develop. One example that Dr. Seltzman brought up in class relates to the peanut allergies. So in the school, peanuts were banned in order to accommodate the people with peanut allergies. But as a result of that measure, the incidence of peanut allergies actually increased because all the other kids were not granted an opportunity to develop a resilience to it because there was no exposure. So it actually had the exact opposite effect that was intended. And then also with this idea of the myths of fragility, we see safetyism starting to develop, where emotional safety may be prioritized over freedom, or comfort and familiarity may be prioritized over new experiences that potentially might not have a very favorable outcome. But we see that really this is not helpful, and it can be kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy because if we believe that kids are weak and fragile, we will want to insulate them, and that means we are leaving them. Um, we were instilling in them sort of an inability to cope with stressors. We're not granting them a chance to develop the certain things they need in order to cope with adversity. So, circling this all the way back to the actual point of resiliency, the point may be that these adverse experiences are necessary in order that we can develop the sort of strengths we need to handle adversity in the future. Because adversity is inevitable. Okay, so we know that adversity has several uses, but then that begs the question, is it totally necessary? Must we suffer? And this is the question that Haidt asks, and I know I'm a little bit over time, so I'm going to go through this slide as quickly as I can. But Haidt proposes an adversity hypothesis. So he says that in order for adversity to be maximally beneficial, for one, it's got to happen at the right time. And so he cites the longitudinal study or analyses of data that sociologist Glenn Elder conducted. Elder looked at the people who experienced some traumatic events of the 20th century, like the Great Depression and World War II, and he found that people who experienced these events before the age of 30 were better able to cope with them. They were better able to come out stronger. So that suggests, and Haidt includes this in the adversity hypothesis, that adversity can be maximally beneficial if it happens at the right time. So that's young adulthood or before 30. If it happens to the right people, um, it's certain people are more equipped, they're more disposed, they have more sort of emotional mechanisms to deal with adversity, so they'll be better able to handle it. And then the third sort of caveat is it's got to be to the right degree. So if it's too severe, and it results in PTSD, that obviously is not going to help the person in their life later on. So it's got to be at that right degree. So those are the three caveats. The right stage in one's life. It's got to happen to the right person with the correct sort of dispositions and necessary equipment, and then it's got to happen to a certain degree. And yeah, that's my presentation. Thank you.